We're on? Okay. Good afternoon, Kenton community. My name is Sabatino Samato. I'm the superintendent here in Kenton, and thank you for joining us for our virtual session on Virtual Learning Academy. The purpose of today's session, ladies and gentlemen, is to answer some questions and to hear more about Virtual Academy since the registration. Excuse me, one moment. My name is Sabatino Samato. I'm the superintendent here in Kenton, and a virtual session on virtual learning. Virtual session on today's session, ladies and gentlemen, is today's session, ladies and gentlemen, is to answer. Can we turn off the internal speakers, please? Okay, I apologize, folks. It is our first shot at doing this type of live broadcast, so please bear with us as we get through some technical issues. We do appreciate your patience. But once again, the purpose of today is to answer some questions about the Virtual Learning Academy. It's also so that you can learn more about the Virtual Academy, since we are making informed decisions if we are going to sign our students up to attend virtual in lieu of attending a hybrid option. Remember, as I've explained in our weekly updates, everything is very fluid right now. We need to know the registrations before we can thoroughly plan and schedule a Virtual Learning Academy. We will be updating the community after not only these registrations, but our information sessions next week. And we want to be able to tell everyone as soon as possible what is going on for the scheduling in a very definitive form. So today we're going to have about a 15-minute presentation regarding the Virtual Learning Academy. From there, we will do a question and answer session live. So as you can see, since you're on YouTube live right now, as you're typing questions in, we have a team here from Kenton that is answering as many questions as possible in writing. I will also take some of those questions and I will address them live after our presentation. So once again, thank you for joining us this afternoon and for your patience and positivity through this entire process. At this time, I'm going to turn our presentation over to Mr. Frank Spagnolo, who is going to give an overview for the next 15 minutes on Virtual Learning Academy. Frank?
Thank you very much, Superintendent Samato, and good afternoon, everybody. As Superintendent Samato explained, we'll be going through some information regarding the Virtual Learning Academy. We have some information as well regarding our hybrid model, just to lay some context and foundation and explain the differences. That was a question that came up from our community. What's the difference? How is the Virtual Learning Academy different than what a hybrid model might look for my student in the classroom? So what I'd like to do is just walk us through the presentation. And where did our clicker go? Okay, left. Sorry, folks. Okay, so the hybrid model sample. This is our hybrid model is what we have designed here in the district, whereby students would be attending school 2 days a week and receiving either asynchronous or synchronous instruction 3 days a week. Now, the 2 days in which a student would be in school would be either on what we're calling an A day or B day cycle. A days would meet on Mondays and Tuesdays consistently week after week, and the B group would meet consistently on Thursdays and Fridays. The days in which the students are not in school, they would be assigned assignments by their teachers to engage in either Google Classroom or on what's called the Canvas learning management system. And students would be required to check in on a daily basis on those asynchronous or synchronous days, the days in which they are not in school. On Thursday and Friday, the students who previously received that instruction on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday would then participate in school instruction. So that just kind of lays the context for the hybrid model. And it's also important to note, because we haven't mentioned it, attendance is a requirement in this upcoming school year. We relaxed the attendance requirements when COVID school closure first began, but school districts across the state are required to record daily attendance. So the requirement of students checking in on the off days when they're not in school is a requirement. And we're going to be providing families and students and teachers some information regarding how they can report their students' attendance. So a hybrid model, some important facts about the Kenton Virtual Learning Academy. So the Virtual Learning Academy will run from September 8th through January 29th. That's in essence the first 20 weeks of the school year. And there will be digital access and equity across the board, meaning we're going to provide the students the same level of instruction that would be expected if they were in the hybrid model, where they're receiving instruction by certified teachers and that there is a consistent pattern and rhythm to their daily instruction. The other thing is that very important for those of you that are watching, I know I've had many conversations with at least 30 families over the last several days, not knowing whether or not you should enlist your students or register your students in the Kenton Virtual Learning Academy or not. The deadline is tomorrow, and we hope to release the schedules of the students in the hybrid model, meaning those families who are not engaged in the Kenton Virtual Learning Academy, during the week of 8/24. So sometime between Monday and Wednesday of that week, our goal is to ensure that the families receive that schedule. Now, I know that there are many families in the district here who have not registered on the Infinite Campus Parent Portal. It is vital and very important for you to register yourself and create an account on the Infinite Campus Portal, because the portal is live daily. We make live updates in real time, and the parent portal will allow you to visually see your child's calendar and schedule for the week, for the year, for the month, including daily attendance, grades, etc. If you do not know how to access that information, we will be providing that on our website in the school reopening link. It'll be a hyperlink that will walk you directly through this process. And this also applies to those of you that forgot your username and login. What's the instructional framework in the Kenton Learning Academy? It's essentially instructional that's typically used that would be mirrored in the hybrid model. It's broken down into 3 components here: an I do, we do, and you do. Essentially, in the I do, we do portion of this, in the you do portion, the students participate in independent practice. And sometimes the I do portion of the lesson also requires some independent practice. The students will receive some direct instruction from their teachers in the concepts and theories that they're learning in a lesson. And again, that's where the you do portion of the instruction comes into play. Now, related services for those students with disabilities that are receiving OT-PT speech, those will be determined on a case-by-case basis and arranged with your child's therapist. We're going to walk through briefly, very briefly, the Virtual Academy calendars. These schedules for elementary, middle, and high school are posted on the FAQ in more detail. So as we go through this, and if I'm going a little too fast for you, please reference the frequently asked questions on our Virtual Learning Academy website link. Essentially, live synchronous instruction will take place in the morning at the elementary level with reading, writing, and math, where students are engaged in either whole group or small group instruction to be determined by the teacher of record. In the afternoon, teachers are going to try their best to set up and assign work either asynchronously, which means students do not need to engage in live instruction or be logged into the computer. They can conduct that work kind of like homework, but it's engaged in the student management learning system, which would be the Google Classroom. And in other cases, it might be Canvas. So that's the difference. And there will also be opportunities for students to engage in synchronous learning with their teachers in the afternoon, meaning face-to-face instruction in a small group with peers, so that there's a collaborative learning process that takes place. Our Virtual Academy High School schedule, again, posted on the frequently asked question. This looks a little bit more in depth, but essentially it's the same concept. The students in the Virtual Learning Academy will follow their regular day schedule. This is just a draft schedule. The periods that you're seeing right now are showing a 40-minute period, but that period will be reduced in our finalized schedule to be approximately anywhere between 30 and 35 minutes of instruction. And in this model, students will be expected to check in each period for the class. So if I'm a student that has a schedule in the morning that my first period is English, my second period is math, my third period is art, I'm going to physically log in to my Google Classroom and go into my English class at 8:30. I might take a small break. I'm then going to log into my math class at second period, et cetera, et cetera. It's a real day schedule. Again, Monday and Tuesday for A groups or Thursday and Friday for B groups. Wednesday is going to be dedicated to synchronous, asynchronous learning opportunities. So many questions came up previously in previous Q&As. What if my student needs some intervention or support along the way? That's what Wednesday is all about. It'll be based on teacher recommendations, students' solicitation of their teachers to ask for support, and Wednesday will be dedicated to that time. Course selection for secondary courses. At this point, the schedule is not being developed. That will take place next week. There are a lot of variables and a lot of bouncing balls at this time. We're taking a look at the enrollment numbers at each of our schools throughout this registration process. So essentially, after 5 o'clock Friday, the hard work begins for our team here at each of our schools and in our Infinite Campus team, so that we can begin taking a look at what the impact is by course, by elective area. If you're looking at this slide right now, you'll notice that electives are not spelled out on this. That is because at this point, we're not fully aware of the number of students enrolled in the courses who are also enrolled in the Virtual Learning Academy. So yet to be determined on what those elective courses will be and if they're offered at all in the Virtual Learning Academy. Throughout this time, it's very important that we focus on the social emotional wellness of our students and we focus on relationships. Instruction clearly is offered. However, as we've noted in the past, the health and safety of our students is first and foremost, as well as ensuring that their social emotional stability and that they're still feeling connected to the school community. And we can develop systems to ensure that. Students will continue to have access to their school counselors. If there are students who have disabilities and who might be in a program that requires or who have an IEP mandate where they are receiving specialized services and supports by the school counselor or psychologist, that will be provided again on an individual basis by the student's related service provider. At this point, this kind of concludes the bulk of our presentation. We're going to allow some time for some questions from the community. We see that there are a lot of questions coming into our ticker board here. Keep them coming. This is going to help us with our decision-making moving forward. At this time, I'm going to call Mr. Superintendent Samato to come back to the camera, and we may go live. We may take our presentation off at this time. Superintendent Samato. It's not advancing. I don't know why.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to attempt to stop share. Is that all I have to do is click stop share to stop the presentation at this point?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Okay, so with that, we're right on track with time. We're about 15 minutes in to our live broadcast this afternoon. There's a few things that I wanted to make sure everybody is very clear on. The same things that I've said in the update from week to week is that I know we keep on using that term that there's a lot of uncertainty right now and things are fluid, we are attempting to plan this virtual academy. To plan the virtual academy, we need to see the total number of registrants and make sure that we can schedule this academy. To schedule this academy simultaneously as you're scheduling hybrid and in-person part-time. When I say part-time, some students are there part-time, the other students are there the other part of the time. So we're trying to almost run 3 different types of models simultaneously. So that's why these registrations are so important. So what I'm going to do is we have a team that's answering all the questions right now, and I'm going to pick out some questions that I will speak to a little bit more in depth and give you some more answers too. So Patrick, can you just scroll on some of those? Okay, can you go up to the top, the very top? Okay. So one of the questions, one of the very first questions that we saw on this is, if we start with a hybrid and realize it is not working, can we change to Virtual Learning Academy? Will their teachers and electives change if they do? And you see the answer. At this time, we are asking families to commit to the selected district model or Virtual Learning Academy through January 29th, 2021. That would be this January. We would review each student's needs on a case-by-case basis. So let's just break down that answer just a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, why we're asking you to dedicate to this is exactly why we're asking you to register for it at this time. We're going to create the schedules the multiple schedules that we have to create simultaneously aren't something that are easily altered. That's why we can't even give the definitive answer of being able to say, yes, this academy will start once you register, and here's going to be your courses. So once you're registered, that's why we're asking you to commit to that time. That will go through the entire first semester or the first 2 quarters of the year through January. That is unfortunately the way that we would have to look at this. Of course, we're always going to continue to work with families on an individual basis. We don't know where this pandemic is going to be next week, nor where the status of schools are going to be even by next week, let alone to say by November or December, we're going to be in the same position that we're in now. Remember, all of these models that we're designing, the purpose and intention of these models is that very quickly, without much notice as a district, we're going to be able to move from model to model. So let me give you that example. Let's say we're able to still figure this out, and I know families are anxious about this. They're saying to me all the time, Samato, just come out and say we're definitively in a hybrid. We're definitively in a virtual. As I said, there's a lot of mitigating factors, not only from registrations and staffing, not only to virus spread, but also to PPE and our ability to transport and our ability to make sure that everything is safe, not even just from a pandemic standpoint, but also a safe supervision standpoint. So all these things are happening simultaneously. Once again, final announcements are within this next week, okay, exactly how we're starting. But all these models are designed so that we can move from model to model very easily. So for example, if we start in a hybrid model with some students attending a virtual academy, and then all of a sudden our pandemic takes a different turn than we're currently in, then we would be able to switch to a remote model very quickly and quite readily. And the virtual academy students would continue moving right along in their same pace, and so would then our hybrid students moving to a full remote model. So that's why we need people to dedicate to it so that we could schedule accordingly and we could keep everything being fluid in that fashion. What if our daughter goes to school and finds she doesn't feel safe? Can she switch to Virtual Learning Academy? And that answer still remains the same. We're giving you as much information about the hybrid. We will not open schools in a hybrid if there is a question about safety. So let me be very clear about that. Us saying and the governor saying that schools are safe to return will not be the only indicator of safety for us. We want to make sure as a team, as a Kenton district, that all schools are safe, not only from a pandemic standpoint, but from a supervision standpoint and an effective instructional standpoint. If those things do not meet the standard that not only we're used to in Kenton, but in raising and continuing to raise the bar in Kenton, then sure, we will look at going in a different direction and a different model. So we can't do that based on feeling. We would do that based on fact. And some of that information, of course, I share with you on a weekly basis. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to move kids in and out once again throughout the quarter. You're committing to a model for those 20 weeks. Will kids, hang on one more second. Okay, parents need more information on the hybrid model to make a decision. I heard in-school opening means a meeting today that hybrid has 2 days of direct instruction compared to 4 in virtual academy. Why such a disparity? Well, let's talk about that for a moment, because it's one of the things that we're considering as a district. I'm sure everyone has watched the news lately. We have some of our neighboring, very hardworking districts. Some of them you've heard have already moved to a remote model. Ladies and gentlemen, they haven't moved to that remote model. I don't mean to speak for them, but they're in the same position as we are in looking at all the mitigating factors. So the instructional effectiveness, the instructional model of what we're able to offer will absolutely be one of the determining factors in the final decision. And yes, it is accurate to say that in a virtual learning academy model, that the students may not be in person, but they will be with an instructor 4 days a week in some type of synchronous form. In a hybrid model, we have to keep, because of social distancing, because of all the PPE that we're faced with, we are only able to give students that in-person model, face-to-face, actually face-to-face, in the presence of each other, 2 days out of that week. The other 3 days are going to be a combination of synchronous and asynchronous learning. So depending on what you're saying and what you're viewing as a family as the most effective, but just that question alone defines what our district and what many other districts are facing with every day. And there is no easy answer to that question. So yes, that is one of the hard facts of this. Will kids from only the same school or same grade, will kids be from only the same school or same grade from across the district? And the answer was, at this time, students will most likely be grouped with students in the grades from their school. So let's just break that down a little bit more, ladies and gentlemen. I want to give you I'm going to give you try and give you a mental visual of this. Let's take one of our elementaries. We'll start for elementary, for example, and why we need to know the registrations and how many people are registering. Let's say in any given elementary school at the 4th grade level, we have 5 sections at 4th grade. And now we find out that, and let's just say in those 5 sections, there are 20 kids per class. And I'm just giving you round numbers. These are not the factual hard numbers in our district, but I'm just trying to give you a mental model of this. So out of those 100 kids, let's say that we learn that 15 of them want to take this virtual learning academy for that 4th grade at this one given school, and we know that we have 5 sections. We would literally then close down one of those sections for the hybrid model, and we would utilize one of our certified Kenton teachers, our wonderful Kenton staff, to actually be the virtual teacher in the virtual learning academy. Those 5 extra students, then we could only do that then by looking at those numbers, it would work. We would have 4 sections to then disperse the 5 remaining students to. That would be about 1 kid per class. One of those classes would have 2, not bringing us over 21 or 22 total. In a hybrid model, splitting that in half, we would have no more than 10 or 11 students in that classroom on any given day we can do that social distance wise. Let me give you a worst case scenario. Why we need the registrations also. Let's take a third grade, and let's take a third grade at one of our schools only has 3 sections within it. And those 3 sections are also 20 apiece. Those 3 sections then in that third grade from that school, we only get 2 registrations for virtual learning. Well, then we would have, if we were going to use that same model where we take a teacher, close a section, we would only have 2 sections left that we would have to disperse 18 students to. That would bring our numbers up to 29, 30 per section. We would not, most likely, we would not, in some cases we could still figure it out because of space, but a lot of times we would not be able to break those 2 sections in half for a hybrid model and be able to social distance appropriately in classrooms. I know that's a lot of talking, it's a lot to digest, but I feel that it's very important that people understand when we're speaking about virtual, this is why we need the registrations in order to make a schedule. It is not as simple as we'll just go hire some more teachers. It's not only our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we are making good decisions. They're just not necessarily as the staff out there, folks. So we are where we are here on August 13th, and we're trying to make the best decisions possible to move the program forward. Another question. Last year, the Scholastic apps were having audio issues on our district supplied iPad, increased support in alternative apps, more flexibility with other apps, or personal books in lower grades. This was answered. We have worked with Scholastic. They have made some upgrades in programs. Some of these programs will still be used while the teacher is working with small groups. So let's talk about technology for a moment. I'm not hiding anything by anyone or from anyone to let everybody know that we are not currently fully a one-to-one district. The goal that we have a wonderful technology department. We are growing all the time in technology, but we need to be one-to-one immediately, as soon as we can. And those orders have gone out for laptop computers, as you can imagine, coming out and being in, but coming out of such a dire strait that we were in the pandemic to begin with. And now, even with the limited capability that companies have to manufacture, we're getting those computers as quickly as possible. So we're trying, the goal is to have more computers into the hands of our kiddos as soon as we can. We've also worked with the companies to make sure that some of these technological glitches do not exist, and they're reduced as much as humanly possible. So we understand we have moved, we are mainstreaming a lot of the programmatic things that we, maybe when we first went into this in March, there were a lot of people using a lot of different programs, the training that we're providing our teachers, the training that our administrators, the work that our administrators are doing with their teachers to mainstream, to make sure that families and teachers and schools and students are using singular programs. Google Classroom is absolutely going to be a main source. Correct me if I'm wrong, for all of our staff that's working here, and they're nodding their heads yes, and we're going with that Google Classroom format. Also, there will be a survey to all families that registered for the Virtual Learning Academy to access and their access to technology, including not only their infrastructure in their own homes, their Wi-Fi abilities and internet abilities, but also their devices, and what do they have at home, and are they able to proceed accordingly within their home. Another question: how are we supposed to make the decision to do 20 weeks of virtual if we do not know the hybrid in school part or will look like? Did we already address this question, or this is a new one? Okay, and we're hoping that the presentation that we just did, some of the things that I just said about the hybrid, and I know the biggest question on people's minds Well, we need to know, Samato, we need to know, is our son or daughter or both, or we have multiple kids in the house. We need to know for our jobs. We need to know just to take care of our families, are our kids an A or a B? We understand, truly we understand. Families do come first in our minds when we're planning everything. The delay in that is part of this is trying to figure out this virtual learning academy. That will determine, we can't plan that, and we don't want to plan that. We can plan it. We are planning it. We don't want to release that out to families, and then all of a sudden we see our numbers skyrocket even more after this meeting. And now we have to switch things up for families and then have them go and plan for certain days. But then we realize we have way too many B kids than we do A kids. And everything being so fluid, those numbers will change. Ladies and gentlemen, right now we are well over 1,000 people that are requesting and saying that they want Virtual Learning Academy. I'm anticipating that that's just going to continue to increase tomorrow through 5 o'clock when this window will close. That will also, just for the sake of numbers, we're approximately 6,700 students in our district. We're already looking at over 1,000. You see where I'm going with this. We have to keep all options open, but taking 1,000 out of that 6,700 in the hybrid can absolutely affect an A group or a B group even more. So we have to look at that. We also have to be able to staff this. Our teachers, remember, our teachers, people become educators, and I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. It's I'm not trying to be insulting in anyone's train of thought, but people become educators because they love kids. They want to put kids first. They want to work for kids. Our Kenton teachers, and putting all just individual feelings aside, but all of our teachers are absolutely working hard daily to try and figure this out, not only as educators, but they're also families too. And their children, figuring out how they're going to educate their own children, how they're going to balance work and education at the same time. They're going through all the same stresses that we are on this. So we're going to have to be fluid in understanding what our own staffing is going to be able to be and look like. Just like companies and corporations are worrying about, can they get the appropriate number of people within their company or corporation. Our teachers are faced with that same challenge. Do the limited electives pertain to both the hybrid model and the virtual academy, or only the latter? Limited electives only pertain to, at this time, the Virtual Learning Academy. So let's talk about that for a second. Remember, the in-person model right now is off the table for September. I've made that very clear in the updates. That's the goal. We're educators. We want to be with kids all the time in the classroom. With all the factors. Remember, sure, it's the pandemic and it's safety and security when it comes to infection, when it comes to making sure our kids and our staff are safe. Our kids are safe. But it's also the fact of all these other mitigating things. PPE, safety on transportation. Can we do, will we do things? Can we do things for food service to make sure things are safe? All of these come into the safety realm. Can we safely supervise our students? So that's why we're still looking at what's on the table. Hybrid option, a virtual learning academy, which is when we're running the hybrid people in this virtual learning academy, and a fully remote option where everyone is still learning online at home with our teachers teaching, and that would look very different than it did last year, ladies and gentlemen. But you've heard some other districts already move to this. So those are the three models that we're still not exploring, but are still in the consideration when this final decision. I will absolutely tell you that these final decisions will be made next week. We will be letting families know by the end of next week what group, okay, I'm sorry, the week of the 24th will be the final week of what group that they're in. We will be letting families know next week, though, the ability to have this virtual by the end of next week, the ability to not only do the virtual academy, but the hybrid model as well. So we're still looking at that. We plead and we're gracious for your patience. And yes, it's just a little bit longer. So we do apologize for that. We know you're trying to plan the year. But when we get into these models and we look at limited options, if we were in a full remote model, for example, like you've heard a couple districts go to, we're going to be operating as if we were in school. All the electives will be offered. We're going to schedule that way from the beginning of the school year. In the hybrid model, we're going to operate that same way. Those electives will be offered. Why the Virtual Learning Academy cannot have those electives is exactly what I explained to you before. And now we're talking more so about high school. If we only have 1 or 2 students that registered for Virtual Learning Academy, we're not going to have the staff ability, the capability to pull a staff member to offer a section for 1 or 2 students. As much as we would love to do that, we just don't have that capacity. So that's why we have limited electives through the Virtual Learning Academy. That's the only model that exists that has that limited capacity for electives. So now you can see that adds to all these things that we're thinking about. The outcome, the best education that we can offer students at this given time. So this is another thing that comes into play. Will UPK have a remote option? We will not have a remote option for UPK. As a matter of fact, speaking about UPK, I'm going to ask you to watch the update tomorrow. We have not been given the clearance yet or the funding yet for UPK. UPK is fully funded, and we're waiting for that aid from our state. Our state is still, I know, trying to figure things out. But ladies and gentlemen, to be perfectly honest, without that funding, we're going to be very limited if we can even offer UPK at all. So I'm putting that out there. Other districts are in the same boat. It's not just Kenton that's in that boat. I hope to have even more information tomorrow, but right now we're waiting on the funding for UPK. But to answer the short question and to get very specific, even if we're able to offer UPK, it would not be in a Virtual Learning Academy option. If I have 2 children at HMS and 2 at West, will they all be on that same schedule? The answer, households will be scheduled on the same day, K through 12. If you have a 2nd grader, 7th grader, and 10th grader, they will be on the same day. So yes, especially when we're looking at the hybrid, right? They will be hitting the same schedule. Now, no matter what, some things that we learn in education, not just in Kenton, about virtual learning from the spring. There will be a mixture in the virtual learning of both synchronous and asynchronous learning. We also know that families and students need multiple times during the day that they can work on assignments. There will be some very synchronous learning where you have to be here at this time, just like school. But we also know that we can't keep kids just on screen time for 6.5, 7 hours a day without breaks, without also realizing that there's multiple kids in a household, without also realizing that families not only are trying to help their kids with education, but work to survive. So the models that we're planning as we take all of this into consideration with our teachers will be ready. We've been training, we will continue to train. That's why also you will have final decisions by the end of next week and final announcements from our district. I'll update you more tomorrow on the update about that. Will we need to provide our own devices? As a district, we're going to do our best to provide the devices. You'll see that in the answer to students in need. I already explained earlier in this that we are not a one-to-one district. Again, though, if you have registered for the Kenton Virtual Learning Academy, that's what KTVLA stands for. Keep an eye in your email for a survey asking you if you have access to devices in your household. So that's what we're gonna, follow up with next week as well. Where is the science and social studies curriculum? The answer was science will be taught in the special area block by a science teacher, and social studies will be taught asynchronously. So once again, this all goes together with not only what we're going to be offering in the schedule for the day, but looking at the science on how kids learn online and what we've learned from what kids are actually able to retain and learn while they're online, how much time they could put to online, and also the flexibility that families need to be able to do some asynchronous learning and not just keeping everything synchronous. So that goes into the model that you're seeing. For kindergarten, how long will virtual classes be? And we're developing, the answer was we are developing an age appropriate schedule for kindergarten. The times will be shorter to start and will expand. I think that the takeaway from this question and answer is that everything will kind of follow that same suit. So let's just look at this. I can guarantee families that if you're in the Virtual Learning Academy, where you are by September 10th in the fluidity of learning from the teacher will be in a much different place where you are by October 10th, where you are by November 10th, and then December 10th. We will continue to learn as we go. Ladies and gentlemen, not making any excuses, but this is a lot like building the plane as we're flying it. And sure, we've gotten a lot better over the summer and from our experience last year that our plane can fly. But we're trying to make our plane a lot more luxurious than it currently is. And we're gonna do that by continued experience. We're gonna do that by continued feedback. That's why we appreciate your feedback, but also through continued training and actual practical application. The learning is in the doing. It's no different for our teachers. They are doing their best. They will continue to do their best. They are Kenton teachers. They have that tradition. So they will continue to improve as we go through this. Can you confirm at the elementary level, will the asynchronous learning be able to happen at whatever time is convenient, or will it have to happen between 12:30 and 3 p.m.? Special area teachers special area subjects can be completed at any time. We're trying to be as flexible as possible. So that's where we are with it. And that model, of course, will continue to morph and change, but that lends itself to the flexibility that I just spoke of earlier. We're down to the last 15 minutes of our session. So let's get in as many questions as we can. Will they be sending home iPads again? We are going to hand out devices based on need. We are not a one-to-one district. This is the same answer as before. I will tell you, this is another one of those things that I said, the learning is in the doing. Where we are September 10th will be different where we are October 10th, November 10th, and December 10th. I will guarantee you as your superintendent that we are absolutely going to do whatever we need to do to move to be a one-to-one district. Period, end of story. So those orders are in. I ask you to please be very honest with us in the beginning because we do have families, all of our families are in need. But we do have families that maybe even have a greater need because of multiple students in the household, or their computer just broke down, or lack of internet. So please be as honest and truthful with us from the beginning as you can so that we could fill those needs in the beginning. But after we get through further into this year, we're going to be rolling those out as they come in because I want everyone, no matter what the need is, I want everyone to have a device in their hands. So that is the goal. That's what we're working for. And I know that's what the team wants. That's what the district wants. That's what our teachers want. And definitely that's what our families want. So that's what we're moving towards. Can parents get syllabus for the state requirements for each subject so we can know what they should be learning in each subject? All of the 8 through 12 course syllabi are provided. This is the answer. All of the 8 through 12 course syllabi are provided at the start of the school year by the teachers. They'll be posted in the Google Classroom or Canvas Learning Management System. So that's no more need for discussion on that. That's very specific and they will be up online. Can you definitely say that the Virtual Learning Academy will be better learning environment than last March through June online learning? So I'm just reading and somebody said that was a joke. So I'm not quite sure what that meant, but the answer that was posted, we have spent significant amount of time providing training for our teachers to improve instruction. Details will be on the website with more specifics about student-teacher expectations. Ladies and gentlemen, let me clearly say this, even though I was not in Kenton last spring. I guarantee you that our teachers wanted to do an even better job than what they were able to provide. They did great work based on the circumstances, especially. I've looked at some of the things that they've provided. I can tell you, I may have just started in Kenton July 6th, but I did not just start in education. I know what teachers were faced with. They were the people on the front lines trying to provide the most that they could for families and for students. Yes, do we wish that we could have all done better? Absolutely, absolutely. But just like our teachers, I can tell you my feeling. I never thought in my lifetime that we would ever be to the position where we're canceling school for in-person instruction for an entire rest of the school year from the middle of March. So not only was it a surprise and a shock, but it was also, they did pretty good for the circumstances that they were faced with. Does it need to be better? By miles. Absolutely. We know that. We own that as educators. And our Kenton teachers own that as educators. And I've seen the training that they're going through. I've seen what our district team that is working feverishly to answer your questions right next to me. I know what they've been leading this district in their consistent and constant learning. I can guarantee you it's going to be better. It will still progress as the year goes on, but we will absolutely be better prepared. We are better prepared, and we know what we can do better from our learning. But please understand, you will never hear come out of this superintendent's mouth that our people are not working the best that they can. Their heart and soul is in it. And I know as your superintendent that we need to do better, that we can do better, and we will continuously work to be better to serve you as our community. How many classes of Virtual Learning Academy for kindergartners? We need the final numbers to create sections, and we plan to follow the current class size regulations. So going to what I was talking about earlier, scheduling, ladies and gentlemen, I do know a lot about scheduling. Whether it's at the elementary, primary, elementary, middle school, and high school levels. So I will be actively engaged with the group, but you have very, very talented people here in Kenton that know how to think out of the box when it comes to this scheduling. Once again, we need those numbers, and then we need to be able to see the viability of this program based on scheduling. We'll progress through it. First, it will be based on scheduling and staffing. Can we do it? Then it will be based on program. How can we do this program? We've been planning the program for weeks now for a remote instruction model. How can we make sure that we're doing both simultaneously and effectively? I will not, and I'll repeat this, I will not allow for any model to go forward in this district that I do not feel will be effective. And to be very frank with everyone, neither will any of our staff. Our teachers will not allow a model that is not servicing the students to the best that we can. So our administrators will never allow any model that does not service their kids the best that they can. So we will look at these numbers, and that's why a lot of decisions need to be made next week. The best is the objective, the best, period. My stepdaughter struggled with math. We're down to the final 10 minutes here. My stepdaughter struggled with math. They did the math program Zern, but when she got stuck on a concept, it was really hard for her. Will there be time on Wednesdays for extra help? So this is such an important question as educators. I think this is what, just like parents do, this is what we're losing sleep about the most right now is if we were just tour guiding through curriculum. And what I mean by tour guiding, well, over here you learn this, over here you learn this. I think all of this would be extremely easy. Why we choose this profession and why we do what we're always attempting to do for our students and families is to get everyone to learn and learn based on their individual need. I can tell you, if you could go back to that answer, Frank, the short answer that was put online was yes, teachers will be able to provide extra support. That's one of the areas that we're continuing to improve on that we learned from that springtime. But this is what we lose sleep over daily. So we understand that concern, and it's at the heart of everything that we're planning, and it will be at the heart of all of our decision making. How will classes for seniors in the IB program be handled in the Virtual Learning Academy versus the hybrid model? The answer, IB courses will be taught on a regular schedule in the hybrid model. We are reviewing options for IB students who select the Virtual Learning Academy. This will be based upon enrollment. Unfortunately, as important as IB is, every subject is just as vitally important in school, or we would not offer these subjects. So yes, is it a challenge that we have to see how many students from IB are in virtual? Yeah, absolutely. Just like every other elective. If we have any other electives that exist, including IB, including our curriculum or our career tech ed courses, including any of our advanced placement courses, including any of our other elective courses. If we have whole sections and we can make whole sections, we're moving forward with those sections. If we can pull a teacher and do it and it works out that way, that's what we'll do. And that's, remember, if we're in the hybrid offering the Virtual Learning Academy. If we're ultimately put into the decision that we have to go to this remote model, whether it be during the school year and we have to shift to a remote model, if after we see all this data that is coming in, including PPE, our ability to instruct, how many people are signing up, what our staffing looks like, all of these different things that we're looking at. If we made the decision as a district, as some already have, then remember, we're going to regular schedules. We'll talk about that at a later date if we're posed with that. But absolutely, Virtual Learning Academy that exists only in the hybrid model, a spin-off of the hybrid, the virtual Kenton Virtual Learning Academy, will be limited in our electives that we're able to offer. Are juniors and seniors going to BOCES? The BOCES schedule, what's wonderful about our local Erie One BOCES is that their leadership is extremely strong, extremely strong. And they look, when we speak of a full service model, that their only intention ever is to service the districts that they're working with. They're looking at the feedback and how districts are changing their model, and BOCES are also changing their model simultaneously. So we will keep you updated on that, but I can guarantee you that our BOCES partners are doing everything to really look at the Kenton model and follow suit and provide those services in the based on our Kenton model. But we will give even further updates on that. In a hybrid model for 15-to-1, it looks like they are going 4 days a week for the hybrid model in the slide that was just shown. Is this correct? At this time, the answer is at this time, 15-to-1 K-4 students are being recommended to attend the 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So we are looking in our hybrid model for some of our special area students where we can. That's how the planning is progressing, especially when it comes to how we're staffing, what we could do safety-wise, transportation-wise, actual layout-wise. We are looking to get those students in 4 days a week. Those models have been up online for the past 2 weeks. And as things are finalized and everything comes to a head here, that is how we are updating, and that is what we're looking to do. We will know will we know the name of the contact person if we need to get answers above an individual teacher, or if someone from an individual teacher needs clarification from an administrator? I'm a little bit confused by that question, but let me see the answer here. Our goal is to have your current child's school be the first place to ask questions if you have the needs for online learning. So let's talk about, since we've talked a lot about the difference between the spring and now, let's talk about the difference also when it comes to communication. Ladies and gentlemen, we were in the phase of this pandemic where everyone was ordered to stay at home. That's where we were in March, April, and May. Our goal going back into this school year for any virtual, hybrid, remote option is that we are still, even if when the students aren't there, we as staff are still going to be there. That's what we're looking towards. So with that being said, then our staff would be in the offices to receive calls and to take calls based on this. That's a major difference when it comes to communication. And in our final moments here, I'm going to try and get to at least one more question. Will families be notified and updated daily, weekly regarding the number of COVID cases in their schools? The answer, the Erie County Department of Health, that's what ECDOH stands for, performs all contact tracing. That plan will be up on our website tomorrow. The Department of Health calls schools after a positive test to identify close contacts. We assist the Erie County Department of Health. The Department of Health will then notify all close contacts. So let's be very clear, folks. In our schools, this is another consideration when it comes to opening schools. We are not health professionals. Erie County Department of Health, Dr. Burstein, you read in an article this past Monday in our Buffalo News, was very clear and even being very specific in that. We are there to educate. Now, with that being said, safety has to be the first priority. So we will have very clear communication lines with the Erie County Department of Health. The principal in every building is the point of contact for the Erie County Department of Health. When we send a student home because a student comes to school with a fever, that does not mean that that student is COVID positive, ladies and gentlemen, but you will see something like this in our plan. If you're sent home, whether you are a student or staff, you are not returning unless you have a note from a primary care provider or a negative test from one of the testing sites that's out in the community. Will also be providing you with that. We've worked with the Erie County Department of Health to make sure that that procedure is very solid. In the event that there was a positive test result from one of our schools, the Erie County Department of Health would contact our schools and find out who that student or staff has been in a risk of close contact with, and they will do that appropriate contact tracing. That's why in our procedures that we have to be very clear who's in the schools on what days, who's sitting where, who travels where. We all have to wear masks. We all have to be within 6 feet or 6 feet or more, especially where we can throughout the school day. All of that will come into the professional contact tracers that will work with the schools and then notify schools accordingly and families accordingly. So yes, that will come into play. That is one of the biggest determining factors also when it comes into opening schools. We're not just planning for where we are right now. We are planning for worst case scenarios in any of this. So that is also why I beg and plead with people to please be understanding, to please see that we have to look at the total big picture when it comes to this. We are looking at all of our plans. We're looking at the registrations. We're looking at safety and security when it comes to planning these models. And to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we're offering this virtual academy, but this is also why I can't make a full promise or a commitment until I have all the numbers in front of me, until I see what would be in our schools, until I see what will be in our buses, our families, or our team sees that, and what's the best option and approach for our families. Ladies and gentlemen, to close, we realize that all of this is tough on our families. Trust me, we realize it. We all lose sleep over it daily. I promise you this. We're not looking for an oh moment for us or any sympathy for us. I'm just trying to validate for you that we understand how difficult this is for you. This is at the forefront of every decision that we're making. We hope that daily we will be able to provide you an update. We will be able to make the most informed decision. I guarantee you that no matter what decision that we do, the final decisions that we land on and what we're able to offer, as many of you that will be happy with that decision, there will be just as many that aren't. This is also a thing that we lose sleep about daily. From our Board of Education to your superintendent, to your administrators and to your teachers, to our support staff, to our buildings and grounds, I promise you that we are absolutely taking all of this into account and doing the absolute best that we can for the Kenton community. We will not only give you the update again tomorrow, we will listen and answer questions in this same format, 3 more meetings with families next week. We have one on Monday, and help me with those times. I believe Monday is 5 o'clock. Wednesday is 5 o'clock in the same format. Thursday is 6 o'clock. Teachers, if you're watching this now, I encourage teachers to also watch those meetings with families next week. We will be holding and hosting a teacher meeting that we are working with our teacher representation next Thursday during the day. And you'll see that format, more to come on that. And we'll be making some final announcements based on those meetings, based on all the data, based on what we're seeing with our abilities of some of the things that I've mentioned by the end of next week. You hear me continuously saying we are Kenton proud, we are Kenton strong, we are Kenton moving forward. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for your questions. We will continue to answer those questions live and get all those answers up on our YouTube Live to the best that we can. The format for next week in our meetings, we will have a short presentation to start every meeting. Then we will go through kind of buckets where we'll ask for you to post questions based on those buckets. So we'll first take 10 minutes and answer only questions maybe about food service. Then another 10 minutes only about instruction. Then another 10 minutes only about transportation. So that will be the only difference in our format next week. But we will have a presentation, a little bit of a deeper presentation on some of these other topics as well. Today, we wanted to focus on virtual since virtual registrations close tomorrow. Thank you very much, Kenton community. Please stay strong, please stay healthy, please stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow in our update.